Hey everybody, is this on? Yeah. So it's been a year since I've took ayahuasca, and I wanted to do a review just for those who are curious because I was extremely curious when I took ayahuasca to how a year on looks like. Has it changed anything like in my life? Have I noticed any changes? With ayahuasca, it's not going to change your life, but what it is going to do is change your perspective, your beliefs, and how you experience life from your own perception rather than actually changing your life. Like, ayahuasca doesn't follow you around. What it does, though, is help you change your perspective, just like any other plant medicine. With me specifically, I struggled with communication prior to ayahuasca. I just didn't have a tool. When you want to express something to someone, if you let emotions get in the mix and you have shame filtering through that, and maybe your triggers or your trauma, sometimes it's hard to communicate openly to how you truly feel with someone. Instead, you might get defensive, or you might just not really communicate the actual hurt and the need that you are trying to express to someone. Rather, you go around the bush. That, like, this kind of just stopped for me. I just went straight into my vulnerability. That's what it is. I wasn't afraid to express myself because I was no longer afraid of being vulnerable. Ayahuasca taught me that it's okay to be vulnerable because I had to be vulnerable to actually experience ayahuasca, or Aya herself, during the medicine. So I know this gets really abstract, but I just learned how to communicate. Throughout the year, that really increased as the time went on from the ceremony. A month after the ceremony, I went to visit my family and I communicated some of my concerns from how I felt, like, prior to the situation, to the ceremony. And 3 months later, I was communicating with more family members, and then so on and so forth. By the end of the year, I was able to just communicate with people from the heart without being afraid of being vulnerable. And I'm very happy that I can communicate openly without feeling like I'm too vulnerable to communicate my truth. One thing that surprised me a lot about ayahuasca is it actually changed my belief system on how I felt about myself. Because I went through the ceremony, there was a sense of strength that came from being so vulnerable because I really had to open up. And it was with, they're not strangers, but I didn't know these people before I got there. It just increased a lot of my self esteem and my belief in myself because I would put myself through something that was good for me, and it turns out that it was good for me. Therefore, my esteem had just kind of got better from that. Even if I didn't experience anything during ayahuasca, honestly, I would still feel proud of myself for going through that. And I think anything that we know is good for us or could help us in some way, and we actually take actions on it, will increase our self esteem. Integration is one of the most common things that I see being missed out in every plant medicine, like, not retreat, but ceremony, or when people take it recreationally or whatever. With plant medicine, nothing is permanent. I'm not saying that to, like, scare people, because there's a lot of promising, like, 3 months duration of change. But integration is what really keeps it permanent. So my integration was open communication with the people that I love on how I truly feel, and to really be there for myself rather than relying on other people. And the opposite, actually, and to rely on people through being vulnerable. It was really weird. So my stability actually came from being open to my own vulnerabilities with people. And that's how I was actually going to be there for myself rather than I don't need anybody. Integration is all about taking whatever you feel you've learned from the ceremony. If you didn't experience anything, that's okay. The fact that you took the steps is good enough. But for me, my integration looked like literally taking steps to actually openly communicate with my family members. And trust me, it was hard. It was so hard. At times, I didn't even say the right things. By the right things, I fumbled, and, I'd just say anything. But eventually, I got to a point where I was able to communicate openly on how I felt, even with people that scared me before. And that was my integration process. And have been keeping that going from then till now. Is I openly communicate whenever I can, because as soon as I stop and I stop speaking my truth, that is when the lessons kind of start going backward. Not backwards, but you kind of go back into your old reality slash pre ayahuasca times and you get lost and whatever. But that was the thing that really changed me. Is I actually took steps to openly communicate whenever I had the chance to. That meant whenever I felt like my truth needed to be spoken, I will speak it. And actually, most of the time, it saved me a lot of time going around the bush, straight to the actual problem, straight to being direct with people. Saves not only your energy, but their energy as well. How do I see the plant now? I still see it as a healing tool. Before, I didn't see it as a tool. I honestly thought it was like the god plant. But now I see it more as a tool, and you can do things similar to ayahuasca in many different forms through plant medicine, or you could do it with a lot of like self awareness and meditation and educating yourself on yourself through books and stuff like that. The plant is just a lot more quicker and a lot more efficient. However, if you experience some negative side effects, even though there's not really that many, but let's say something a bit more traumatic came up for you, then that's when there's risks of psychosis and stuff like that, and we don't want that for you. I still see it as something that I would do again. You know, I would like every like 6 months I'll think about it. So I've thought about it twice. Uh, yeah, I'm not gonna ever say these things are the only way you can heal, but they're honestly one of the most effective ways that you can heal, as long as you have the right assistance and the right people around you. I was lucky enough to have a guide that was just amazing. Just like anything in life, if you have a book, you read it, you implement it for a minute. If you stop implementing it, it doesn't work anymore. It's just about action. It's about choice. It's about taking the steps to being vulnerable. Fear is the only thing that stops us from living our life. Fear of being vulnerable is the actual thing that we're facing when we're not taking action. Because if we take action on the things that we've learned, there's going to be maybe a sacrifice that you'd have to make or a fear that you'd have to face. I don't know. That's all I'm saying. I still love ayahuasca. I think it's very extreme way of healing. I think for anybody beginning, I would always advise like something not so strong. And I hope that was informative for you, and let me know if any of you actually end up doing it. I'd love to be nosy. Anyway, I love you. Bye.